Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Life with Zach. Today I'm going to talk about my new irrigation system that I've installed around my patio and in the back around my garden box. Now this is the Mr. Irrigation System that you can pick up at Lowe's. It's where I got mine, probably Home Depot, ordered off Amazon. And what happened was, with all these new plants that I installed around my patio, I was really being overwhelmed with watering. So I needed to do something to really reduce the amount of time I was spending watering, because it was taking me an extra half an hour to do all these plants, plus up at the garden, plus everything else I have around my house. So I did some research and I settled on this system for two important reasons. Number one, it's adaptability. So we'll talk about this, but you can get a bunch of different heads and attachments that let this do a lot of different things, and really focus the area that you're watering on. Like, I didn't want big sprinklers that are going to water way out into the yard or up on the concrete all the time and waste a bunch of water. This one has the ability for me to basically direct where the water goes, where I need it, so I'm not wasting any. That's number one. Number two, it's flexibility. So basically all this is, it's this black hose, and you are going to punch little holes in it, and we'll talk about this more, where basically the sprinkler line goes into it, and you can set these up wherever you want to go. It's not like there's specific links or anything like that you have to worry about of hose or where what's going to go. You can move this, and you can even plug those holes later and readjust this. Plus, this thing can set out all the time. It doesn't have to be taken in, and it's not going to affect it. It actually wasn't too awfully expensive, and you can run basically any length that you need to in order to get it to work. So let me show you what I've got here. So here's where the water starts. On here, basically I've put a Y on here to get water going in two directions. I have a pressure reducer on here to make sure that it drops down to the 25 psi that this thing can handle. I've got the adapter that goes from the garden hose thread to the regular hose thread, and then you can see it's just attached right here. This flexible but still hard plastic pipe that is 1/2 inch. You can get 1/4 inch to go off of this, but you want 1/2 inch for your supply that's running. Then I take it back here. I've got two plants here. So I've got a T, you can see that, where I've got that line going off, and then I've got one going out here around the patio. Alright, so again, you come back here, there's a sprinkler, you come down here, here's another sprinkler. Alright, so what attachments do I have on here? As you can see, this flower bed is not that wide, okay? It's only about 2 feet from this way to this way. So I wanted something that would not shoot on the patio or out into the yard. But I also want to be able to capture 2 plants at least at one time. So I got these attachments. Alright, this sprinkler basically has a couple different settings on them, but one of them is one that allows it to do sprays out of both sides at about, I would say, a 45-degree angle. So what happens is, and I'll show you this when I turn it on, basically I get flow out each side that covers both plants. Alright, and that goes maybe 3 feet, could go a little bit more if you ramp it up, but I have it actually turned down. This is a little valve here that you can actually use to control the amount of water coming out of that sprinkler, which is again part of the flexibility of this system. You know, if I needed one that could go farther and one that could go less distance, then this is going to let me do that and not waste water. But again, basically just to hook it up, you poke a hole here. There's a little purple thing with it that goes in there. The water comes through here. This is 1/4 inch. It holds in here. There's a little valve that lets me adapt how much water is coming out of here. Then here is where the sprinkler head goes in. Again, this is one setting. That can be adapted to do like a 360, it can be adapted to do a 180, or again, coming out both sides. Over here, you'll see I have a setup for my potted plants with a dripper, all right? So this is actually a little bit kind of a adaptability on my part. So it's got their same sprinkler connection that goes here, just like on the other one. But I went and got these dripper heads that can actually are like a little 360 thing. It's not your typical like one little drop at a time, but it can cover that area, but it can also be reduced down to just drip out almost. And I call them dripper heads, but I guess they're not technically that, but to drip out almost streams in a 360 pattern. And I really like that for the pots because it gets water in the whole pot without just getting one area dripped. Plus it lets me put more water in there at one time because this is all connected together. I didn't want to have to run that for a long time to soak that through a traditional just single dripper function. So that was kind of adaptability. I researched the different heads and the flows and all that and was able to come up with that to work in the 4 big pots that I have around here. But let's go ahead and turn this thing on so that we can see how it works. I will add though, one thing you're going to want to get is make sure you get some of these metal, you can see this one's a little rusted, stakes. I think you can get ones from Mr. Irrigation System or somewhere else. It doesn't really matter. But the square garden stakes to hold the hose down, especially if you're getting this from the store, because this hose is stored rolled up, it's not going to want to lay flat. So if you want to be able to put it where you want it, they told me I wouldn't have to do that, and I had to go back and get these because I couldn't get it to stay where I needed it. It may now, and eventually I'm probably going to bury it, so it'll definitely stay there. But I had to get those for it to go in the correct location to start with. Also, in terms of burying it, I am going to do that probably next year, but I didn't want to do that until I knew where everything was going to stay, and I tried it out for a year to make sure it was the right spot. All right, so I would definitely recommend that because you don't want to have to bury it and then come back and dig it up to move something. All right, so it's staying out for now, which isn't going to hurt it, but I probably will bury it just next year because of aesthetic purposes. So flipping it on, and we've got water going here, and you can see how this one works. There's water coming out both sides. You can turn these if you need to adjust where it goes. You can turn the whole stake, you can turn just the sprinkler, you can adjust the flow here. I'm not going to do it because I'll probably never get it back where I want it, but you can see it's water to that plant and not really much further. Same thing going on down here, and then here's my little 360. You're getting some air out of the line right now, but this little 360 sprinkler covers that entire pot and gets it wet. All right, back here you'll see what I've done is run a garden hose to my garden box. All right, the reason I did that was because I need to move this to mow, so I didn't want to have to adjust that every time. So basically I just take the garden hose off every time and put it back on. But then you get your 1/2-inch pipe again, and these are actually different heads. So these are 360 sprinklers. All right, they actually spin, they get the water out 360. I got 3 of those that go here. These are what are considered the smaller sprinkler heads. I had a big one that came with my multi-pack that I got initially, and it was doing too large of an area, it was watering out into the grass. So what I did was I adjusted back to the smaller ones. Again, I looked at how much distance it was covering, what I needed to do, and basically figured out that 3 of these small ones would cover what I needed without any waste. I spent, I think, like $6 to get 4 sprinkler heads on Amazon from this company, and worked great. I was able to cover all of this. So now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to walk back here, and I'll turn it on, and we'll come back and see it in action. So what I've done is I actually walked back and had to turn off the system around the patio So I could run the one around the garden with enough pressure because of that reducer to make sure that it covers everything. But you can see after running for about 5 minutes, the amount of water that those sprinklers produce. Pretty wet down there. It ran out the bottom of the pot. That's all I really need to do is water it that much every day in order to keep these flowers up, because these don't take a whole lot of water. The garden back here now is running. That one I'll run for at least 15 minutes a day. These flow, I think it's like 10 gallons an hour. So, I'm getting pretty good water. We're not in a drought or dry situation, so it's not like I need to run them for a long time. I could if I need to, but it rains enough here that this is basically just supplemental. But you can see, hopefully, the water coming out the sprinkler is covering all the way to the edge here. There's 1, 2, and 3. They work really well. I've had this for at least 6 weeks now, probably more. I had one head clog up that I just, blew some air into and cleaned it out, and it's worked great since then. The hoses have been fine. They haven't cracked. They still cover the same range. Like I said, I have a bunch of different attachments and accessories that can go different places that I need to, but this is working great, and it saves me so much time. Basically, I'm able to water this while watering everything else with the rain barrels, and it works just great for me. So again, this is the Mr. Irrigation System that I'm using to water my garden and around my patio there. Works great. I would definitely recommend it. Like this video if you enjoyed this review. Comment with any questions. I'll try to get those answered. Subscribe to check out other things as they happen, and we'll see you soon.